He grew up riding on the res. He was a member of the posse, the sheriff's posse there for many years.
You see, folks, why I like to come to these and see all you wonderful people is because, like Paul mentioned, there for a few years after Roger and I was able to acquire that film footage, my wife and I both took an awful lot of ridicule. And that was because at that time, there wasn't that many people aware of, and there hadn't been that many sightings or or the evidence of the footprints. There'd been a lot, but it wasn't exposed to the public that much. The Russian scientists come over and visit with me, and they say, well, this has been going on in Russia since before Christ was born. So, it's not a new thing, it's an old thing. It's just a matter of being able to educate people of what is out there. And I'm not trying to convince anybody here that the Sasquatch exist. I know they exist, but whatever a person wants to believe, that's free. This is America. You can believe whatever you want to believe. And if you haven't seen any evidence of it, then probably you're going down the middle of the road, like I was at one time, when I didn't know anything about it, until I was exposed to a number of different documentaries, and Roger had played some cassette tapes for me for many testimonials of people that had experiences with what they call Bigfoot. And of course, I don't know how many of you here know that the Bigfoot name originated in Northern California. There's so many different names for this, and forgive me if I upset you, but I call them forest people. And to me, that's what they are, forest people. Well, there is many, many different names in the areas for the forest people. The Indians had names for them, and up north they're called Sasquatch, up in BC, Canada. And so, first time I saw that name and saw a painting of one of them, I had no idea what they really were. I thought maybe they were a tribe of First Nation people. So when I found out that I didn't know too much about it, and that's why I started learning or listening to more people. How many folks here have had an experience with the Sasquatch? I'm going to call them mountain people with Sasquatch. Well, good. Hey, thank you very much. Anyway, and of course, the film footage that Roger and I acquired become world famous to some people, and some people it's just another thing that they said some man in a suit, which it was not. But again, we're Americans. We can believe whatever we want to believe, and until proven otherwise. Okay, I want to just go ahead with the program and see what Paul's got on the agenda here for it. And
well, we could take a few, I want you guys to ask some questions. Another thing about the film, the Patterson Gimlin film is the second most analyzed home movie behind the Zapruder film, which is the JFK assassination. And the Smithsonian Institute was really interested in this film a few years back. And just, the film's never been proven real or a hoax, one way or another. And just on the merits of how many times it's been viewed and watched and analyzed, that's huge. And there's a whole section in the Smithsonian Institute that recognizes the film for that thing right there. But yeah, if you guys got any questions, ask Bob. Now's your time, or anything about Bigfoot or radar station or Ron or whatever. So have at it.
Well, Paul, just a minute. Oh, thank you.
Sure.
You can see that I'm an old man and I can't hear at all. So speak up loud and Paul will tell me what you're saying, okay? Forgive me, but...
Oh, I don't think you got to worry about that.
You got a good voice.
Yeah. So I just watched your film again last night on YouTube, and the stabilized version as well. What was going through your mind, not as it was happening, because I know your mind was probably blank and you were just concentrating on trying to keep it steady. What happened when the adrenaline came down? What was going on between you and Roger? What were you saying to each other?
Well, my first thought and probably the first things, they really do exist. Of all what I heard, I'd never seen one before, naturally. I hadn't even seen a good footprint, and that's why I was down there, to be able to witness some footprints. And of course, they were all wiped out by the time I got down there, so, excuse me, what we just stayed in, and like Paul mentioned, we rode in the mountains for the next 3 weeks, and really had no idea. We had ridden some of the same area that we got the film footage from. But the thing was, we left midday to go a long ways back to ride some new areas, hoping that we'd come up on a footprint or something, a fresh one. Well, about 3.5 miles out of camp, Roger was riding in front of me and I was riding behind him. And we come along the creek bed and everyone stood. So the first time the adrenaline was going so fast and everything was moving so fast, the horses, the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch, and of course it was walking away all the time. But you know, you're not in shock, you're just thinking, well, you know, really, they really do exist. And afterwards it was kind of like, is it really a nightmare, or is it real, or did we get any film footage of it, or what all? And so it was exciting. I don't know if you guys or some of you ladies, if you've ever been out elk hunting or deer hunting, and a big old buck or a big old bull jumps out of the brush in front of you, and you're just not quick enough to get a good shot. It's etched in your mind forever. And so that's the way this is with me at this present time. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I've heard, I don't know, I want to get confirmation from you that when you guys took that film and you were up there for those 3 weeks, you said?
Yes, sir.
Did you actually see 2 more? Is that true?
Did not see 2 more.
Okay.
There's been so much talk about that there was more there. Well, that's a possibility. We never saw them if they're there. But there were 3 different sizes of footprints around the piece of equipment that why they called Roger about it. So seeing one, then the assumption was that there was 2 more possibly in the area. But I never saw them and Roger never saw them, and so we never talked about that.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, lady.
What is his reaction before you approach? Did the horses, were they
Yeah, very much so. You know, Roger is a pretty fair hand with horses, and I don't want to say too much, but I do horses quite well and handle them all the time, every day. And it was about all I could do is stay on my horse and keep it under control and let the pack horse that I was leading go on his own. And Roger's horse, I have to be a little careful what I say, because one time I said, Roger's horse really blew up, and the lady said, how many pieces? Well, so now I say, Roger's horse was jumping, lunging, and being very, very nervous while Roger was trying to get off and get his camera out of the saddle there. So yes, the horses acted up. Thank you. Yes. She's got an awful sweet voice, but I couldn't hear her. Well, I myself have some, but you know, I don't want to talk about them because there's never been any really proven evidence of where they stay, where they sleep. You know, as big as they are, I think they sleep any darn place they feel like. Well, no, that's been debated also, and there's been some pretty strong evidence that that is a real good possibility. And you know, most of you folks already know they're not sighted that much, and usually if they want to be sighted, you will see one. If they don't want to be, you probably won't get to see one, because they're very elusive about us hairless people. That's what they call us, or that's what I've been told. That's what they call us. One has never spoken to me or given me any evidence that they even acknowledge us, except the hairless people. Is that okay? All right, thank you. Yes, sir.
Can you take us through what happened to the film after you filmed it, and then when you first saw it, how it got developed, and what happened to it right after that?
Well, sir, you're asking me somewhere. Part of the questions I know. Part of them, I'm still in the dark with it, because my partners kind of did things against me that never was enough. Okay, yeah. The first part of your question was, did I know what happened to it? Well, no, I do not know what happened to the original film, but I did get to see it quite a few times while we were touring around with the film. To BC, Canada was the first trip we made to show that. And then we made some trips into Mexico and to New York and some different places. And so the two partners I had, bless her soul, well, Roger's dead, and I guess I could call them partners. They were guys that was kind of involved with me on it. And so I went back to work afterwards, after we traveled around, and they did not. So they didn't let me know a lot of things that they did, and so I was kind of alienated away, and I had to work for a living and put biscuits on the table. And I was just married to a pretty young wife, and by golly, she was working, and I didn't dare lay down very long and not work, you see. Yes, sir.
So my question is, I've read that you had rifles when you guys encountered the Sasquatch, and I heard somewhere that you might have said that if you had a chance now, you would have shot it, come back with the body rather than just footage. Do you still stand by that?
That is false if I ever heard it. Yes, sir. Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. I say do not shoot at them. Do not take a weapon with you if you're going out for field research. These Sasquatch are not here to harm us unless you're in an area where they want you to leave and you refuse to leave. They will ask you to leave by throwing things, and we'll get back to the rifle, if you will, sir. Yes, Roger and I both had rifles in our saddle scabbards. And when I rode across the creek and got down off the horse, that's when you'll see that famous footage where it makes that turn with its head and part of its body and kept right on walking. But that's when I stepped off the horse. I pulled the rifle from the scabbard and held it down. I never raised it to my shoulder, never intended to shoot unless I thought maybe I'd have to defend myself, because this big muscular creature's walking away from me. It didn't show any threat at all, but I wasn't taking a chance. So I just held my rifle there until it disappeared.
All right.
Up a draw. Thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
Why do you think nobody else has been able to come to the quality of the actual film that you guys encountered back in the 60s with all the technology that we have now?
One more time, sir.
The film footage you guys have is spectacular compared to the stuff that people are supposedly coming up with now. Why do you think the quality of yours is so much better than the stuff they have now when technology has advanced so much?
Well, you know, I can't answer that because I don't know much about filmmaking or any of that kind of thing. But I think probably that our technology in this day and age could enhance just about any film. Is that what you...
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, because your film footage is spectacular compared to anything else that's coming out.
He's wondering, Bob, why there hasn't been other films, but when in reality there is other films that are, I would say, just as good as the Patterson Gimlin film, if not better. The Freeman footage, if anyone's familiar with that. There's a few other footages on there. The problem with today's age is ever since the introduction of YouTube, is you've got a platform now that is unlimited. You really don't know one way or another if it's a hoax or real. I'm sure there's some real films on there. There's also a lot of hoaxes, and a lot of people got into hoaxing, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. It kind of turned around. But there are, if you deep look into this subject a little bit, the Freeman footage, I would say, is the first time I saw that footage, I was like, wow, that's just as good as their film. So there are films out there. Who knows? There's a lot of speculation on that. Maybe the Bigfoot's got wise, you know, they know that we have the technology, you know. People tend to think that Bigfoots are dumb or maybe not as smart, but you know, I think they're smart in their own ways. It's like all animals really, you know, all animals kind of still have their pineal gland that's not, you know, classified like a human's, and so if you look at any animal, they're, you know, the way they act in nature, they're way ahead of us. And I think even now, with the advent of computers and everything, we're actually dumbing down a little bit on being out in the woods, you know. So I'm glad I was brought up when I was brought up, when we went out into the woods and did things for real. I kind of feel for today's kids sometimes because they are so attached to their devices, let's say. So, yeah, there's other films out there. That's a great question. That's definitely debated a lot, so thanks.
Has anyone bought Bob Hieronymus yet?
No, but I will. There has been a number of films to try and copy the Patterson Gimlin film. I had been invited to a conference down in Northern California, and I was to take my horses down and take these folks through the mountains. But when I pulled into the place, I was into a place where a young lady was renting horses to ride up through the mountains. When I met her, she said, "Do I look like Roger?" And I looked her over and I said, "Well, not the way I saw Roger." Anyway, folks, so she said, "Well, the German people," and I'm not saying anything against nationalists, okay, some foreigners, I'll say, come into California, wanted to try and make a film similar. So they hired her to be Roger, and they hired a guy to be me. So they put her hair all up underneath the hat and whatever else they had to do to make her look like Roger, because she was little. Roger was a small guy, and smaller than me. Of course, I was a little bit bigger then. But anyway, folks, so there's been quite a few different ones that have tried to duplicate that film footage, and unsuccessful. And actually, there's a guy in my area, almost my neighbor, named Bob Hieronymus, and maybe you guys have heard about him. And so they made up a suit, and he got acquainted with some guy by the name of Greg Long that wanted to write a book and make him very, very rich. So they wrote the book, and they got a guy there, and they made up a suit, some guy from, I think, Georgia, and they put this Bob Hieronymus fellow in it, I guess. That's what I heard, anyway. And he couldn't handle being in the suit there, so they picked a young guy about 6'3", and put him in the suit and took some pictures of it. It didn't turn out worth a darn, I guess, because I don't think the book sold, and Bob kind of went his way, I guess, and the young guy went his way. And then when, I don't know if you know who Bill Munns is or not. He was a special effects man to do special effects for different things, like the Planet of the Apes, and he was a special effects man for 35 years for California, for Hollywood, to be exact. And so he got busy thinking, well, if it was a fake, I'm going to prove it. So he spent about 4 or 5 years studying the film and going down there at the film site, which had changed dramatically over the years, the growth of the trees and the way the creek was. And he could prove beyond the shadow of doubt that the Sasquatch was 7'4" and 3/4 inches tall. Well, the suits and stuff that they even put on the kid, it was about 6'2" or 3" or whatever he was, didn't even match up. And then he couldn't walk very far in it. So it just proved that it couldn't be faked by somebody in a suit. Thank you.
Do you have a theory about the origin of Sasquatch?
Do you have a theory about the origins of Sasquatch?
I wish I did. You know, I'm sure they're family orientated, or we wouldn't have a viable breeding population. And so I've been told that they've seen juveniles and young ones and adults, and so I'm only going by what I've been told. I've never seen any juveniles, or what they call young ones, young adults, but there has been a number of sightings which indicates that they are family orientated and that they do have structures, family structures of some type. And hopefully in the future we will be able to communicate enough with them to learn what really is going on. You know, back to the Fred Beck thing, if you ever heard about that, he maintained that there was a young female and a young male in the family that he was carried into, and he didn't really know why that he was carried for miles and miles in his sleeping bag. I don't know if any of you here have heard that story about Fred Beck.
Albert Osterman. It was Albert Osterman. Fred Beck's the other guy from St. Helens. Yeah.
Hey, boy, here.
It's all right. That's why I'm here.
I'll duck those eggs, you guys. Thank you, Paul. Anyway, that story was written in a few books, and it was actually told to Roger and a friend of his about the episode. Yes.
So you said something like, you think the Bigfoot chooses who they let see them? Why do you think Bigfoot chose you to let see me?
So, a lot of times Bigfoot chooses who can see him. But she's asking, why did Bigfoot choose?
Or do you think Bigfoot chose you?
Chose you to see.
You know, that's a really good question, and I can't answer that. There's been speculation on that reason when Roger and I were riding up that creek bed. If the other two was in the woods, it's like a detour. Getting us detoured away from the other two if they were really there. So it's like, I don't know if you're a hunter or not, but if you're a deer hunter, you'll see the does walk out first and then the bucks will follow behind. And isn't that the bucks are smarter, it's just that they're bigger cowards. Yes, there's the lady back there.
Yes, she asked if we brought any foot castings, and there are foot castings in the front, and of these posters of frame 351, which is the famous one. So right here where she turns and looks is when Bob got off his horse with his 30-06. Roger yelled over to Bob to say, "Bob, cover me." Because they didn't know what was going to go on. I mean, this was happening so fast. When this encounter happened, it happened so fast. Everything was going off. And but anyway, these are from way back in 2009 when we had a real special gathering in Yakima.
1955, and so I haven't slowed down a whole lot, but you can see by looking at me that I've had a lot of birthdays and I'm getting a little long in the tooth. So folks, but I haven't quit doing things because I still go out as often as I can, as close as I can to the different places that have been fairly active as far as the Bigfoot go. So, and I'll still be going to California for the 50th. But anyway, folks, I got to brag just a little bit too. They had me come down in Willow Creek in April, asked me if I'd come down and be on the last episode of Finding Bigfoot. And being as I was on the first one, I wanted to go down and see Bolo, Cliff, and Moneymaker and Renee. So I went down thinking that that's all they wanted me there for. Well, I got there and they said, "Well, go down follow us down to this street." Well, they had a big ribbon across it, and they said, "Bob, stand behind that." But I didn't look up at the sign, the road sign. So then the mayor said, "We named a road after you, Bob. It's called Gimlin Way in Willow Creek, California." So I clipped that big old ribbon. Thank you, folks. It was quite an honor to have a road named after you. So then I was honored also to have folks come along and get a picture with me there, standing alongside Gimlin Way. So, and then the next day in the parade, I was Grand Marshal, and boy, then my hat wouldn't fit anymore after that. So they quit having me do things. Yes, sir. We'll catch you. We'll get you in a minute.
Never heard Sasquatch vocalizations of Hoax.
Yes, sir. A number of times. Almost every time.
Has Bob ever heard any vocalizations or wood knocks?
And I have, many times. Lots of vocalization and lots of wood knocks. And with the hope that we could see what was doing the wood knocks and the vocalization. And sometimes they worked in coordination with each other. We figured, and what the speculation is that it's messages to other Sasquatch. Now, we don't have any definite proof of that, kinda. Now, some people think they do and some don't. So, you know, it's the question right there again. How much do we know about them? And I'm hoping in the near future we will learn a lot more about them. There's some people claim that they communicate with them, and I hope that's true. I'm not that lucky, but I'm going to work on it if they can teach me how or show me how to be able to do that. And guys like John here and Paul, they might be able to help me out with that. You know, I think this man should have been introduced also, because he is one of the top field researchers with Paul Graves here. And I consider Paul one of the very top researchers in the Sasquatch Bigfoot field. And John here is just as active. So,
yeah, everybody welcome John Andrews. John's been researching for over 50 years, and he was living on Camano Island with his wife and then moved down to Colorado to be next to his twin brother, and he just moved back up to Wenatchee. They're looking for a house to buy right now, and they're actually staying in a hotel, so if anyone's got an extra room they want to rent for a month or two, let us know. I had to put it out there, John. But John is an excellent researcher, and John has some of the best recordings, vocalizations ever gotten off the Stevens Pass area, and they were analyzed by a lab. That's something that I do also, is I analyze wildlife sounds in what's called a spectrograph, and it will visually, you can look at a wildlife recording and you can basically tell what it's not. All animals have hertz range and a voice print. And so these Sasquatch calls that we're getting are coming in real interesting around that 650 to 800 hertz range, pretty tight. And it also has a voice print of it that's unique to that particular call. So if anyone happens to get anything on their phone or anything and want it analyzed more, you can send it to me too also. So wood knocks is something also that Bigfoots do. So you'll be in the forest and you'll hear like what sounds like somebody banging on wood or something like that. So this is something that has also been witnessed Sasquatch doing. And Sasquatch has been witnessed screaming too up on Blewett Pass. I've got a really good story of a hunter up there that was in his trailer and something came up and rocked his trailer, which is something Bigfoots do quite a bit too. And he was like, what's going on? And he opens the door, and here's a Sasquatch about 20 feet away from him turn, and he just turned just in time to watch that thing open its mouth and let out a huge scream. So they have been witnessed screaming, you know, it's not just like we're making speculation here, so.
Thank you, Paul. That's been tested a lot by linguists and different professional people that are to that type of a profession to try to make the decision whether it's a human type sound or whether it's an animal or whether it is something in between. So all they've been able to come down with is an unknown vocalization. And there's there's Ron Moorhead, originally from the Sierra Mountains, got some real good vocalization of the Bigfoot Sasquatch. So I don't know anything about how you can acquire those. If you're interested, this vocalization I think was acquired back in the 70s. Paul, is that correct? Back in the 70s, and it is really a great vocalization thing that Ron Moorhead and Barry Moore was able to get. So if anybody's interested, I suppose you could put Ron Moore's name in Facebook, wherever, and that would come up if you were interested in getting that vocalization. Oh, I must be tired. Yeah, I kind of am tired.
Anyway, folks, this gentleman did have a question.
Yeah, we got digital pretty well. Good you brought up, Sam. I wanted to ask about smell. You got the smell
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking that. I'm sorry I didn't speak about that. This particular one down there that we got the footage of had a terrible smell. And Roger and I couldn't agree on the exact smell because Roger, okay, what I thought it smelled like was a musky skunk smell. Skunky like skunk, but kind of musky. And Roger said, forgive me, an old cow dog rolled in cow manure. So, you know, Roger was kind of a cowboy type feller anyway. I tried to clean it up just a little bit. Thank you, folks. Yes, sir.
The gentleman that you said lived somewhat near you that supposedly wore the suit, or said he wore the suit, did you ever have a confrontation with him about it?
Well, no, I could if I wanted to stop and confront him, but I was pretty upset about that, and so I just let it go, and now it's been quite a while, so I just kind of don't bring it up and leave it alone. If he wants to go that route, that's his business, you know. He's an okay guy, he just probably wanted to get rich and didn't make the grade, or didn't get what he gets promised. And you know, like me, he thought because I always had a nice pickup and a new horse trailer, he didn't realize the jobs my wife and I both were second jobs and third jobs. And so anyway, he said, "Oh, Bob, this has got to be making a lot of money." I wish he could make the amount of money that I make. He wouldn't even have a new pickup. But you know, unless he's sold, he's an American. He can say what he wants, do what he wants, and I'm not going to hold it against him. I go past and I wave at him and smile. And, you know, I buried all that stuff a long time ago about those guys that were trying to prove it was fake, trying to prove this, and trying to prove that I was getting rich from it, and if they only knew. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, folks. So, Bob Gimlin.
Thank you very much. I don't deserve that, but I'll take it, okay? Thanks again, folks, and it's sure been a pleasure to see you.